Hey yo, how's it going? It's Tuhu. Lots of people have already made guides for how to deal with the Wenut boss in this Rotations Abyss, but while they generally do a pretty decent job of covering it, individually they all leave out a few details here and there. So what I'm going to try to do here is combine everything that they cover as well as add a few things of my own into one comprehensive video about the big Anima worm guy. That and seeing the timing of this Abyss rotation and the Shenhe/Ayaka bandit that should be live by the time this video goes up, I get the feeling that we'll be dealing with the Wenut boss for a while, so y'all are gonna have to learn how to deal with it, and the sooner the better. And yes, before you ask, this is what my stream looks like on a regular basis. Let's start with the worm, specifically its moves. It's got 5 distinct ones, in the first one which I like to call the Emerge, or just Dig if you play Pokemon. It pops straight out of the ground and goes straight back down. This one is telegraphed, as in you can tell immediately what this move is by the circular hitbox that appears before it pops out, giving you time to either get out of the way, iframe it, or ult through it. If the boss uses this move, it'll come up right underneath your active character to hit him. Since the Wenut has just under 2 million HP and 55% global elemental resist, I recommend iframing or ulting through this move's initial hitbox so that you're right next to it to start smacking it. You're going to want to tack on all the damage you can get right away. If you get hit by this attack, it does about 7,000 to 8,000 physical damage from what I've tested. It also launches you, as in it sends your character flying if they get hit without a shield, forcing you to waste time waiting for your character to recover and then move in to start hitting the boss when it's already a time-wasting boss to begin with. Of course, you can get hit by it and still not get launched if you just mistime your dash, which is better than getting launched at least. Overall though, this move lasts for about 6 or 7 seconds. Its second move, which I call the Surf, is where it casually surfs up and along the ground like it's catching some waves down in California because it's just chill like that, I guess. It doesn't attack at all, so this is a free window of opportunity for you to get some damage in and some energy, and it lasts about 8 or 9 seconds. Its third move is similar to the second, except he flies a bit higher above the ground, moves faster, and spits animo bullets at you. We'll call this one the laser spam because of that. There's a dead zone right next to the worm in all directions when it uses this move that extends out a short distance. While this doesn't happen often, if you get the worst RNG for this move, the boss will actually fly straight towards you, and he can sometimes even push you in a direction you don't expect and cause you to miss your attacks, so go at him from the side if you can. This move is also just hard to react to because when the Wenut comes out, it comes out fast and starts blasting like its name is Danny DeVito, and if you're not already standing inside its dead zone or can't react fast enough to dash in, you can get slapped by a few shots. Each bullet does up to 4,000 animo damage if it connects, so yeah, try to avoid getting hit. If you can, as soon as you see this move, either dash towards the Wenut if you're already close by, or run further out so you have more room to dodge shots, but obviously you'd prefer to do the former. Its fourth move is where the boss pops out of the ground like the first one, but it charges up an animo laser beam and shits it at you. Literally too, since it's using its tail end. Technically this is its strongest attack, but there's another dead zone right in front of it, so just pull up and smack it a few times. This move lasts longer than the previous two, about 10 seconds, so you have more liberty as to what you can do here. When the Wenut uses this move, it will always spawn on the opposite side of the stage from you in whichever direction puts the most distance between the two of you. If you're too far away for whatever reason and you can't put up a shield, you can always dash sideways through the laser when it starts firing and take no damage, but since the laser's pretty wide, try to use your tallest character since taller characters have longer dashes. The fifth move is the most important. The Wenut flies up noticeably higher than any of his other moves, and the third person camera also pans out to accommodate it. It then spawns a total of 6 wind bite bullets over a short period of time, but I'll just call them balls because I'm an immature little prick who's watched Genshin Twitch chat spam obnoxious emotes for far too long. It begins spawning them when the worm guy does the small little dive in its aerial glide. You must hit at least 2 of these balls with Pyro, Electro, Hydro, or Cryo, and you'll bring it down and put it in its weakened phase where it just kind of sits on the ground not doing anything. The instant you take it down, it then suffers a 40 or 45% elemental resist shred when it originally has 55% to whatever elements you use to blow up its balls. or in other words, hit the Wenut with everything you got from those specific elements once it's down. And yes, I said elements as in plural, because you can put multiple elemental shreds onto the Wenut when you take it down. For example, you can use Pyro to pop one ball and Electro to pop another, and then the Wenut will have shreds for both Pyro and Electro. In Omega the 12th's video, they demonstrate that it's possible to put 3 different elemental shreds onto the boss at once. It doesn't stay down for long though, it gets back up after about 10 seconds, but it still has its elemental shreds until it fully retreats, so you can keep hitting it as it's running away, and in total you have about a 16 to 17 second window to do as much damage as you can to it before it restarts its entire movement cycle. And if for whatever reason you can't shoot down the balls in time after they're out, the Wenut gathers them up after about 3 or 4, maybe 5 seconds. They don't stay out long, so act quick, and rains down anemo shots onto you like a bigger version of its laser spam attack. If you get hit by one of them, they can do about another 8,000 anemo damage, give or take, 1,000 I guess. There's a dead zone right in the center of the map, or you could just iframe them. Usually, the Wenut follows a 5-move cycle. An offensive move that attacks you, then a surf, then another attacking move, and then another surf, and finally the big glide. The first attack is either the emerge or the laser spam. The third move is usually the laser beam, and the second and fourth moves are almost always surfs, and the fifth move is always a big glide where it shows you its balls. But there is some RNG to the cycle. Oh boy, there is. On rare occasions, you can have only a 4-move cycle where the Wenut skips one of its attacking moves completely, does 2 surfs in a row, and goes straight into its glide. Other times, it'll use 2 attacking moves in a row and then do its 2 surf moves back to back into its glide. I don't know what causes it to sequence break itself like this. I think it might be due to your position on the stage, and if you're in a weird spot, the worm doesn't know how to react to you and messes up its movement cycle. Technically speaking, getting the 4-move cycle would be the best RNG, but I want to stress that this is pretty rare and you shouldn't count on getting it consistently. And I actually only found out about this through my own testing very recently, but if you manage to do more than 25% damage to the Wenut in its first cycle before it reaches its 5th move, there's a good chance that you'll just straight up cancel its 5th move, which is kind of what you want, and it'll restart its entire movement cycle. So ideally, you shouldn't bully the worm too hard so that way it can complete its cycle first, and then you can put it into its weak state. And while we're on the topic of RNG, the Wenut's surf move has completely random spawns, at least 4 of them for each quadrant of the stage, possibly even more, but there is a way to mitigate the RNG. The game gives you a threat indicator that points you in the general direction of the boss if you're not already looking at its next spawn point. Because the worm doesn't pop out immediately when it uses the surf move, when the threat indicator appears, you then have about a second or two to haul ass over to it when it does show up. Sometimes it doesn't always exactly pop up where you expect it though, so accurately reacting to the threat indicator can take some practice. Now for the balls. The Wenut's 5th move is always the same, as in it pops out of the ground at the same spot, follows the same glide movement every time, and spawns the balls at the same time in the same place. Most importantly, it spawns 2 balls at around the same time right here, so as soon as you see the glow coming from them, you can attack it with any AoE move, and you can easily blow them both up and instantly bring the worm down. This is the fastest way to take the boss down and put it into its weak phase. Last little detail about the boss's moves, there is a very rare 6th move that I've seen the Wenut use only like once or twice, maybe 3 times in the past week. It's when it pops out of the ground like the emerge move, but it does it faster and then shoots another laser beam at you. Unlike the regular laser beam move from earlier, which goes from left to right, this time the boss aims it directly at you, first at the ground and then upwards into the air, so you don't have as long to dodge. You shouldn't have to worry about this move too much since it seems to be a very rare attack, but it could happen, particularly when you get an abnormal cycle. So the overall strategy here is to hit the boss at every opportunity that you get. Even though it has damage resist when it's not in its weak phase, the fact that its weak state is pretty short overall means that you need to chip away at it as much as you can while also prepping your team to blow their loads all over the boss when they do shoot it down. Hey, I mean, we call it the wee nut for a reason, right? Ideally, you get the Wenut to emerge, and then use your more expensive ults on it there, if you have them, since you'll have more time to get them back for the big fly. And if you get the laser beam as your third, use your cheaper ults, or shorter cooldown skills on it, since at that point, you're only 2 moves away before the worm goes flying. Use the surf moves mainly as a way to farm energy to prep your team for the weak phase. For team builds, you can technically run teams for any one of the elements that can blow up the balls. Since you have to deal with the Hydra Heralds in the second half of 12-1, your teams are likely to be weighted towards cryo teams, but remember that if you've already 3-star 12-1 and 12-2, you can just bring your best team against the Wenut specifically without worrying about the 3-star condition for the previous floors. But yeah, mono cryo teams are pretty good, in case you were wondering why Eula wasn't on these rerun banners right now. In fact, single element teams are arguably the most efficient teams against the Wenut, since your entire team will do more damage against it when they take it down, and they don't need to waste time or anything setting up double or even triple shred onto it first. Do not run Geo or god forbid Anemo teams. Geo obviously doesn't swirl, and the Wenut, since it's Anemo itself, has 90% resist or something to your Anemo. Dendro alone is also bad, but you're using it for other teams anyway, so that shouldn't be an issue. Speaking of Dendro teams, a redditor claims that Hyperbloom teams can use the Hyperbloom shots to help you track where the Wenut spawns, but after I tested it a little myself, I came to the conclusion that unless I'm just doing it wrong, or I'm just bad at it, it's not worth going for this, since it's kind of annoying to get set up, depending on what exact characters you're running, because in order to get the Hyperbloom shot to go track the boss, you need to trigger it right as the Wenut completely submerges, so that way it chases when the worm relocates. If you trigger Hyperbloom after it submerges, the shot's just gonna go straight up into the air and not do anything, so it's easy to mess up unless you dedicate the time and effort to do it consistently. And like, why do that when you can just use the threat indicator trick that I told you about earlier to tell you where to go? I'm not saying that Hyperbloom itself as a whole is bad against the Wenut, far from it. I'm just saying that the specific aspect of using a Hyperbloom shot to go track the boss down isn't worth using when there's a much more reliable option available already. Normally I wouldn't recommend physical, but this mad lad on the Chinese server ran Footstool Razor because you can footstool the Wenut at the lower half of its body and beat it that way. I guess there was a reason why miHoYo put Mika on these banners. In any case, assuming that you don't have an absolutely cracked physical Razor, bring the strongest team that you got for the Wenut, since he's one tanky son of a bitch. Some character recommendations are Miko for her totems. As long as you plant them in the middle of the map, they should be able to track the worm down no matter where it goes. And Ayaka, whose ult, well, can do this. Oh hey, hear that guys? That's miHoYo telling you to go roll for her. Right now! Kazuha is, to no one's surprise, an exception to the don't bring Anemo rule, since he gives a damage bonus to whatever element he infuses, making him a vital part of any possible mono cryo memes that you want to try, as with any other team you run. I also assume that you're running him with the standard 4-piece Viridescent, and not 4-piece Thundering Goddamn Fury like your name is Zajev77, though I'm sure Zajev's already cleared this abyss with 4-piece Thundering Fury Kazuha already. And of course, Bennett, but you're taking him anyway, anyway, since when aren't you running the Pyro Archon in Abyss, right? It's just that this boss is so damn tanky that characters like Benny or Kazuha, basically anyone who can give a significant damage boost to the rest of the team in some way, are even more crucial against the Wenut than ever before. Some guides like Omega the 12th tells you not to use archers, and yes, most of the roster can take the worm down without you needing archers in the first place, but Ganyu is a strong exception to this because her bloom shot can instantly blow up the first two balls once you know where they spawn. That, and you can use any archers' charge shot to destroy one ball up in the air, and then hit the one that spawns low with anyone else to then put double elemental shred onto the Wenut. It's obviously slower this way, but it is something you can do if you can't like triple swirl or something and you need an alternative. So yes, the Wenut boss is one of the more obnoxious bosses we've had to deal with in Abyss, not because it poses a big threat to you itself, since its attacks can be easily avoided, but because it's another time waster boss, and I'm sure we all love our enemies that waste time in a sub 3 minute DPS check environment, don't we? But while most content creators out there tend to focus on things like character stats and team comps, I want to remind you all that studying how the enemies themselves behave can be just as important to a successful 36-star run. That and, well, let's face it, many of you probably just run Raiden National or something for every goddamn Abyss you come across and call it a day. Nothing wrong with that, of course, but it can't hurt to approach Abyss bosses from a little bit of a different perspective whenever you start having trouble. It also doesn't help that the Wenut boss isn't an enemy that we faced before in Abyss and only recently came out with 3.4, so there's definitely a degree of unfamiliarity in the player base that we're going to need to resolve for more consistent clears in the future. After all, if MiHoYo brought back the Geo Wolf Lord, they'll definitely bring back the Wenut, so might as well get used to it sooner rather than later. Alright, that's it from me. Hopefully this helps out with your own 36-star attempts. Make sure to stop by my Twitch channel. I stream Genshin almost every day starting at roughly 2 to 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time if you want to watch me casually destroy Abyss and play 7 gacha games at the same time like you're seeing me do here. And thanks for watching. Peace!